Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Zarina Stanford to the show. She is the CMO at Bazaarvoice, and in that role, she leads with a customer-centric, insights-driven, outcome-based approach to all aspects of what she covers and touches, which is awesome. She's a recognized growth catalyst. She's passionate about design thinking, the art and science of being relevant, agile leadership, inclusion, having fun, all the things that drive people into the marketing world for sure, why we all got into it in the first place. So excited to dig in with Zarina on what she thinks and feels and believes about the whole thing. So we're excited to learn more about how you lead, and so welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to it. You know, like we talked about, we've kind of known each other for a while, and this is our time to have a real conversation.
That's right. That's right. We'll do it just live on the air. Why not, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your story, like in 3 or 4 sentences, the quick summary of how we got to today.
Well, very, very quickly, 3.5 years ago, I joined the mission that we're on right now here at Bazaarvoice. And I remember at the time when the recruiter reached out and say, you know what, hey, you should look into that. And I remember saying is that, you know, is this really a mission I want to be a part of? And to circle all the way back, and then as you know, what we do here is really all about consumer voice and the authentic voices. And I think each and every one of us have our own authentic voice. And having the ability to come to work and to really champion about that and just being ourselves is really a beautiful thing. I grew up in Hong Kong many, many, many years ago. I came here to the US for school. And before I knew it, I was recruited, spent some time in sales. And when I was tapped on the shoulder to run marketing, I remember saying to myself, do I really want to do that? And I never turned back because I think, you know, what we do is so strategic, so exciting, and it's so much about driving growth and so much about trying new things and just being creative.
Awesome. I love that. So you touched on at the beginning about mission driven that comes with obviously being at Bazaarvoice. Do you feel like that? Have you always been motivated by mission driven, or is that kind of something you've learned through experiences that like, wait a second, I don't actually believe in what I'm doing. I need to find something that's aligned with my beliefs?
Cal, that's a great question. And if you allow us to just go all the way back, right? I remember coming out of school, all I wanted was a job.
Yeah.
And it really, whoever hires me, I'm like, okay, just go, I'm ready to go. And then along the way, I think we find our anchor and just say, wow, this is something that really matters and something that could really make a difference. And as we think along those lines, I still remember that moment. This is back in my second half of my years at IBM, and we were celebrating the centennial of the company. And I was one of the spokesperson on behalf of telling that story. And I remember saying, wow, did you know that we have something to do with that? And then all of a sudden, you took a lot more pride. And I think for those of us being, you know, the storytellers and being the CMOs or the marketing and the voice for the brand, you have to have that pride.
Yeah,
you have to, because people are going to see it in you or not in you. And so having really truly believing it, and most importantly, having fun. What we do is the believing and the fun part that I added to be really the mission. And, you know, it's a lot more than even be a part of being purpose-driven. Purpose-driven is important, but it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more about, it isn't you wake up in the morning, not just to go to the next, you know, meeting and what have you. I wake up in the morning thinking, wow, what great thing are we going to do today? What impact are we going to leave for years to come, right? For the whole commerce space, or the whole whatever space that we happen to be in. It's exciting.
That's awesome. I love that, the idea of sort of mission and fun and bringing those together, because I don't think that's just something that, if you do it right, that's not just something that translates to your employees, but it translates hopefully to your brand and then to your customers. And the reason they buy from you is because they believe in what you believe in.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Kelly's so true, right? I think in what we do, we count on other brands really appreciating what it's that we do on their behalf and together with them. And I think in this space, it is so important to also take the human side of it. It isn't just only the solution. It isn't just the space. It isn't just the expertise. It's really also the people that we're all a part of it. And we have to bring, and I say that all the time, and I know it's a little cliche, that we have to bring our whole self to have fun and to work.
Yeah.
Because you have to work, right? I mean, well, for different purposes. But if we have to do it, and if you can really get the total satisfaction 360, that just completely changes it to become an opportunity versus a mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. A few months ago, I realized that I was I was in back-to-backs the entire day. And so you're so in the grind that you can't sort of lift yourself up to I don't know, to appreciate and be present in what you're doing, because I was probably multitasking more than I meant to be, but between meetings all day and still having work to do, there's just times when you have to do it. So I started getting up at 5 a.m, and between 5 and 7, I just worked to catch up on all my stuff. And it's allowed me during my workday to feel fully present in all of my meetings, because I'm not feeling like I need to catch up on email. I need to catch up. I'm like, no, that's what the mornings are for. What I get to do right now is be fully engaged, fully present, bring my whole self to this conversation, my whole self to this problem that we're solving, whatever it is. And it's been a game changer, I feel like, with not only my job satisfaction, but just, I feel like hopefully the satisfaction of the team, because they feel that more focused, engagement too.
Yeah, I think so. I remember still, and by the way, I was going to give you a big applaud as well too, right? I think just being able, especially, I think, because of the forum you're on, as leaders, whether we know it or like it or not, people watch what it is that we do. And if we are not feeling that we're totally present, the only message we're sending to them, whether it's intentional or not, is to say, you don't need to be all in. And that moment that becomes permissible, then we're not getting 100 and 150%.
Yeah.
And it would be frustrating to us. It would be frustrating to the team. And guess what? People on the outside, our customers and our, partners or whatever, they can feel it.
Yeah.
And on the reverse side of it, if we're so in and we're so to like this conversation, I'm just having balls just right now already. and just being able to truly have that engagement, that's the power that I think, as each individual, whatever role that we happen to be in, is representing the business, who we are, and what it is that we do.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's that. Yeah. Right? Well, it's a responsibility that comes with leadership, which I think is a big one, right? Is kind of setting the example for that engagement. So speaking of leadership, I know you are a big believer. I always use the phrase, I want athletes. I want business athletes. But you use the phrases leading as business leaders first, marketing leaders second. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. That really came from the conviction is that I remember, and for anyone who's been listening to it or watching it, I guarantee you, every one of us had those experiences where you're in a room and you're in a meeting, virtually otherwise, and there's this conversations, and there's a conversation against the skills or against the bigger picture is what is it that we're hoping to do? Mm-hmm. And I think that in our world as CMOs in particular, some of us, unfortunately, could narrow the field too much and only think of ourselves as the marketing expert. Mm-hmm. Not. The first thing and everything that we do is about growing the business, growing the brand, growing the customer base, and growing the market share, whatever it is that, growing the share of voice for that matter. Yeah. And it's about growth in a business dimension. It isn't about the skills. It isn't about the competency. So I think that it was some aha moment some years back to say, do I want to become only an expert? Now, that's not to discredit the ability and the power of being an expert, but an expert has to have a broader perspective. Yeah. And if we bring the business driver and the business advisor and the business angle and owner first, then all of a sudden our skills, our competencies, and our wit and our expertise become the everything that we bring to rise above what the business or what the world may be asking us to go do. Yeah. It's just more exciting.
Yeah. Well, I think as you move up through your career too, you're sort of forced to go less deep, more wide.
Yeah.
And as a result, you sort of, by the time you get to a more senior level, you have to be sort of a full steward of the business, not just a marketing, functional leader, which
Yeah.
I think is the great opportunity. It's one of the reasons I love being in my job is because I feel like I get to sit at that table and have those full business conversations, not just what is the marketing strategy we're going to do on this, but really like who should we as a company be, or what should we want to do, or where do we want to go? And I think that's really powerful. And I think that means that what I always tell the team is look at a P&L. Like learn to read, learn to understand where investments are happening, where the business is growing, where we're profitable, where we lose money, like what's growing fast, like how we're staffed, like understand like the P&L and the balance sheet, because then you have a more macro view of the whole business and less on just your functional area. And I think it makes us overall just better business athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may also add on top of that is I think in our space in particular, we have to look at yesterday or days before that. We have to look into the future. We have to look at today. And therefore it allow us the bandwidth to be strategic.
Mm.
And if we are the strategic athletes, if you will, right, for the company, then we're also helping drive and inform the strategy and the downstream and where, for that matter, where the market is going. And in the marketing discipline, the number one that if I have to force a start of the circle, right, has to be the market insights and the market intelligence. And that has got everything to do with putting antennas out there and also putting radars ahead in terms of, hey, you know what, we should look ahead. This is where in a sense, where beyond where the puck is going, this is where the whole season is going to go.
Yeah.
And how are we going to go there? And what are the things? And that is very much a business conversation and not necessarily on, what's our attribution, what's our, ROI, going much beyond that.
Yeah, for sure. So in doing that, as part of, let's say it starts at, the executive team level and that where you kind of have these cross-functional conversations, how does that, how do you help drive sort of that cross-functional alignment as you work through the organization, right? Because there's this partnership that has to happen between sales and marketing, or marketing and product, or marketing and strategy, that all kind of goes together. And so, I think it's risky to stay too much in our swim lane because of what you're talking about. But then there's also the bring it to ground, hold each other accountable, but be great partners. How do you think about that approach?
I love that because it is very, very timely. We have just finished up our strategy planning session, for that matter, because our fiscal year starts May 1st.
Okay.
So we have just gone through this whole athlete, the basic camp, right, if you will. And I think that I would always equate to one thing, that if we can all clearly see what great looks like, same, as well as what is the vision, where we're going, then it unites regardless of what functions. And from that standpoint, I have a little bit of a sensitivity when I hear the word alignment. I think if we only have alignment, we're only aligned. In the same analogy that you were just drawing in terms of athletes, right? And I would equate that is that if we are driving forward to alignment, it is as if you have an Olympic swimming pool and you have 10 lanes and you have 10 swimmers, and they're all swimming in their own swim lanes. That's full alignment. Nobody's crossing over, everybody's happy, but yet you have 10 swimmers. They're all going on their own race. And I think we all can identify with it way too much.
For sure.
Whereas what I would really like to, and I often appeal to my team and to others as well too, when we're in this kind of a cross-functional and matrix conversation, is that if we can envision ourselves as just one team, it's the same 10 swimmers. However, now we're swimming in a relay. There are 9 other people going on their own relay, but there's only the 10 of us going to the same gold medal. And one go in, the second go in, the third go in, and then until the 10th one, you have now benefited on every single effort of the 9 people in front of you. And if you happen to be the 10th one, you're the anchor, you're going for the gold, for the last mile, the last swing, or whatever it might be. That to me is the power of one team. That to me is the power of a very, very integrated and very, very synergistic planning and executing together as a company. And to draw on, in our world, right? So many people count on what marketing has to do, but marketing also has to get the insights in terms of where is product going, where is sales going, but most importantly, where is our customers going? And which is why I'm always going back to, if all of us swimmers only think about and only look at that gold, and therefore only look at the customer is the best guide for us to be in this very integrated approach. And it just makes it a lot simpler to appreciate. So at the end of the day, if the customer is solving for this,
Mhm.
or the customer is dreaming about this potential, and we're there to go try to make that happen and be that partner to make it happen, then all of a sudden we're on the same competition. We're on the
Yeah.
same world. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think we're going through a whole OKR process, and we have just started on OKRs. We've had them for years, but they were sort of a once a year Excel exercise for a long time. And now we're really making the sort of foundation of our operating model. And that first sort of like set our O's for the year drives, right? It's a lot of that, what you're talking about. Let's figure out our game plans, figure out who's carrying the baton first. Let's figuring out who's owning, leg one of this race, leg two of this race, and what are the goals when we get to the end together. I love the metaphor. I think that's super powerful. And it's a challenge, right? But if you're talking about like, hey, it's about growing our revenue 12% or whatever, everybody's got a role in that. Engineering's got a role, product's got a role, strategy, finance, marketing, sales. We all have a role in getting that out the door.
Yeah, but like you said though, right? If everybody is aiming at that same 12%, this 12% that you look at versus somebody look at is exact same 12%, all of a sudden we're looking at the same thing. And it's just very, very powerful. But I have to say, and you share the same conviction, it is difficult.
It is difficult.
Especially because the culture, the historic, reality, if you will, if we hadn't been tackling them, to do it the first time is really, really hard, because muscle memory would take us away from what we want to do, the new swim style, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's accelerating when you're getting the goal and you say you're all there and we are there together. That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a fine line. And there's so many nuances I'm learning. I'm like, yes, I fundamentally believe that. And then there's, I think about my history, not I'm talking about demand-based, but my life. I think about like, if there was like someone on the team that I didn't trust, or if there's like one kind of bad apple in the group or something, then all of a sudden it's like, I don't like, how are we all doing this together? Like there's things we need to like, it's so hard. There's a humanity component. There's a trust component. There's a competency component. There's an execution component. Like there's so many different parts that, to your point, are all part of that integrated approach to a shared goal. And so leadership is hard.
Yeah, it really is. And I think also because so much hinges on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, this is really, if I'm creating a new machine, it's like, do we really know how, when I put the pieces together, that actually works the way we want it to? But I think, to go back to your point, having the conviction, having the wit and the skills, and most importantly, the togetherness, the culture and the permissibility to do so. And, and doing so with love and with passion, I think this is wonderful. And we in our space, right, the marketing space is one that really truly embraces both the IQ, the EQ, the left brain, the right brain, and all the arts and the science always have to come together. Yeah. And which is why I think we're in one of the most fun seats.
That's right. It is. I think it is the most fun, just because of all those reasons that you said. And especially if you think about that relay race, marketing is at the beginning of it. We're in the middle of it. We're at the end of it. Like we're weaving all throughout that whole thing, which is fun. It means we get the baton a lot, which is nice.
Yeah, and we get the energy for it too, I think, right? I mean, there's some reality to the fact that we all self-selected to ultimately, how do we get to marketing?
Yeah.
And there is I don't think it's pure coincidence sometimes, in terms of what kind of personality, what kind of grit that has to come in. And and I remember years and years ago when I went in, I remember saying is that I'm not really creative. I can't be in marketing.
Yeah.
But I was thinking really of the old days of marketing of just the creative
Yeah.
piece of it
Design,
and the
billboards,
design and all that.
advertising.
And yet they all come full circle
Yeah.
that if we could have the best stories, but if the design isn't there, it's not going to piece it all together.
Yeah.
And we could have the greatest story and the greatest design, but if the evidence, the data is not there, then, we're missing a beat.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, for
wrong.
sure. That's that art and science too that you've talked about. It's not just the art. That's sort of like the perceptions that it is. But
Yeah,
especially now with everything going digital, it's forced so much more to science and
totally.
less to art because now you can actually measure the results instantly as to how they're, and so then you can like adjust your art to match the science.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'll share this, and I don't think Colin Dell is our engineering and CTO.
mhm.
And I remember this is 2.5 years ago. I kind of invited myself to their to their leadership team, and I remember there was a little bit of hesitation. Why is marketing coming to our, CTO leadership? And the first thing I appeal to everyone in the room is to say, you know what? While we may not think that these are two disciplines that often comes together or being even alike, but I would say two things. And I said was, number one, we're here, we do very well in problem solving. That's what engineering does. That's what
Yeah.
marketing does. And then the second thing I said is that we're all about innovation and creativity. If we don't continue to innovate from a technology perspective and from a marketing perspective, we're going to be like stale.
Yeah.
And so on those two premises alone, engineering and CTO office and CMO office has to always come together because we're the same, we thread together on the same, it just is a not typical way of thinking, but if we really dissect it, it's those two things that drive to reality.
Yeah. That's funny. I actually sat down with our chief R&D officer the other day and I said, I want to figure out how we can adopt in marketing. He runs in 2-week sprints, like an agile model in two
Yeah.
week sprints. I was like, I want to figure out maybe how we can kind of look at running 2-week sprints in marketing. Can you teach me how you run an agile methodology? And he was like, oh yeah. And he walked me through the process, connected me with one of his guys. Cause I thought, man, similar to what you said, right? We're running like you got to move quick. You got to be able to pivot quickly. We A/B test a lot, I'm sure, and they're testing a lot,
Same
different
thing.
things.
Yeah.
We're looking at results instantly, making adjustments, rerunning, and we have that freedom now. Like I said, in this digital world, we get to do a lot more of that. But I was thinking, man, how do we run like an efficient engineering organization? Because otherwise, there's just a lot of moving parts in marketing, and I was like, maybe we just need to run in these kind of sprints, the sprint model, because
The
you're right.
sprint
There's so
model
many
is a great one.
similarities.
And what I love about behind the sprint model too is the whole experimentation concept.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? It's just like, hey, I think we are all human at large, and most of us, especially the type A leaders, like we want perfection. We want to do things, but it's like perfect. But that's not reality.
No.
It's great to just experiment, try it out, and then which is why I'm really big about always on design thinking. It's like if we don't vision what's possible and then all of a sudden try it out and then get there, we won't become, the greatest thing that we could be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If we can get to say 80%, get it out there, perfect it as we go, we'll move forward. But yeah, perfection's kind of in the way of progress.
Yeah,
Isn't that the
yeah,
phrase?
totally.
Um,
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. Well, shifting gears a little bit, I have also seen that you are a strong, I'll say advocate for women, but really an advocate of using your voice in a way to, to share your opinion, have a point of view. Tell me a little bit about that and where that came from.
Yeah. Well, thanks for honing in on that one. One may not be able to tell that I'm petite. I'm always small, and I remember when I first started working, I'm always the only woman.
Mm.
I don't remember because I started in sales as well too. And I remember I always come in being the at the time also the youngest and the smallest. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta go figure out how to do this thing. And I really thank one of my bosses during my IBM days. And he said to me one day, it was just very profound, but it seemed so simple when he said that. Is that, you know what, Zarina, the thing is that when you have great ideas in your mind, if you don't articulate them and express them, they just become great ideas in your mind. And they just sit there. And the reality is that the business who has hired us are hiring us for the things that is in our head and for whatever it is that we could offer. And that moment just told me to say, wow, he's right. If I don't speak up, I could be losing something. The business could be losing something. And more importantly, the conversation may not move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that just made it very easy for this. I grew up in Hong Kong, Chinese person, and I have to be respectful. All of a sudden, it gave me the lens to say, wow, he's right. I have to speak up when, and not at all times, when it's the right time, when it's also particularly the time that we can move the conversation forward. And so that was really my conviction, is that, oh, wow, we all have to speak up. It's just like in voting, right? We all have a count. And I'm going to say this, especially, I think, and this is generalizing. I think too many of us women sometimes feel that we would want to wait for the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And even I have gentlemen and guys on my team who would just think the same thing. And then that passivity, if you will, is not actually doing justice to progress, whether it's progress of the business or progress of humankind for that matter. And so I just felt very convicted, and this is, 15, 20 years ago, to say, wow, we do need to speak up. And what is amazing too is that I have a little bit of a double diversity from that angle. And all of a sudden, it just made that very, very enlightening and as well as gratifying, that if we are the one who is able to make progress happen. And that was really partly also the moment when I felt like, okay, I'm going to do my best to learn. I'm going to do my best to absorb and really synthesize. And I think that is the critical thinking ability that we have to have, especially in marketing, because that's what the rest of the organization is counting on us, being crystallized and being very relevant.
Yeah.
And that's why, to circle all the way back, 3.5 years ago when I was doing an interview here with Bazaarvoice, I said, wait a second. This is a whole business built on just the voice of the individual. And that just becomes something that I would appeal to everyone, is that whatever you may be looking at, whatever the next project you may be doing, or whatever the company that you're talking to, look for that opportunity. Is that the environment that's going to allow you and provide and nurture that kind of thinking? As well as we as leaders ourselves, how do we encourage others in the room and others, whatever the space is, to speak up?
Yeah.
Every piece of insight will draw us to the next progress.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So people who are listening don't know, Zarina and I both worked at Rackspace years ago. We didn't overlap. We overlapped with a lot of the same people, but we were there at different times.
Yeah.
When I first started, or maybe maybe a year into my time at Rackspace, I was in a meeting with a girl she was on my team, but we, just were peers essentially, but she happened to report to me. And we were in this meeting, and afterwards she says, hey, can I give you some feedback or something? And I was I guess I was like a senior director. She was probably a director. And she said, have you ever heard of Uptalk? And I was like, no, what's that? And she said, it's the way women often deliver ideas in a meeting where they don't instill confidence in the people that are listening, because they sort of make it seem like it's all a question mark. She said, if you listen to men will be like, I think we should expand into China. And women are going to be like, so maybe we should consider thinking about expanding into China? And she was like, when you inflect at the end,
yeah, exactly.
and when you add all these disclaimers, maybe we should consider whatever, she was like, it immediately undermines your idea. And I was like, man, what a wake up moment. It's that shift from passive to active that you're kind of talking about. And really, how do you deliver your voice, your idea in a way that instills confidence in people around you? Because a man says that confidently, you're like, okay, well, tell us why. Let's go into China. I want to hear all about it. Women, it's maybe you should go back and do some research on that and come back and see if it's a good idea. Because it sounds like you don't quite believe in your own idea. And I took that so to heart. I was like, wow, that is fascinating insight. And now I listen for other women. If I feel like they're hedging, then I want to kind of come in over top and reinforce their idea, because I want to say like, yes, that's a fantastic idea. We could, to add the confidence to it, and then also coach offline and be like, hey, believe in that, deliver it, bring it, like show that you own this idea. Don't let somebody step on top of it and take credit for it. Like, own it. It's just so fascinating to watch. And I think as women, we have sort of a responsibility to look out for each other in meetings in doing that.
Absolutely. And I love this example that you just mentioned as well, too, is that it's really amazing as that sometimes we think we're the only person who has to do something. Mm-hmm. But this is where there is a community and there is the support lending to each other, as well as why I feel strongly that we have to be very passionate about what we believe in. And when we articulate something that we have passionate belief behind it, our voice just naturally would be a lot more convincing.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. That comes with practice. It's not going to be easy. And I remember having this same kind of conversation too. It's like, wait a second, I just said something. Somebody else in the meeting just said exactly what I said, but how come everybody heard? What he said is opposed to what I said. And sometimes it's the inflection, sometimes it's the whole presentation piece of it. And I have to admit, right, of all people, marketing should know.
Right.
So you have to present the whole idea. And I think that also demands that confidence. And, whatever we need to find our own individual way, what does it take to build that confidence? Yeah. And what is it? I would even get it down to as basic as that. I still remember one time I was not feeling very good that day. And I said, wait a second, I got to be on. So I went into my closet. I said, at the time, red was my color. I said, you know what? I'm going to have to wear something. I want to wear something red so that I can feel, and leverage the power that it comes in. The power, maybe the strength.
Yeah. Confidence, all of it.
Whatever it takes. It's just something that we need to be aware of. Totally agree with you. Yeah.
I love that you have a color for that face.
Too, right? Yeah.
I love that you're like, red was my color at that time. I'm like, I'm just going to own red. This is the season of red. I think it's great.
Own it. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, cool. I think this probably leads well to one thought right before we exit. A couple things. One is knowing that a lot of folks who listen to this are maybe up and coming marketing leaders. Do you have any great advice for this? I mean, in the world we're in, this crazy AI world, this crazy digital world, this crazy, marketing athlete world, like what's your best advice for kind of the up and coming leaders in marketing?
Yeah. I think the first one I would say is that always be a learner, be an apprentice, because we can always, there's always a spirit of learning. And I think that excitement of learning, that hunger is infectious. It will bring everybody in the room to say, oh, wow, what else? What else can we do? And it just all of a sudden have that mushrooming, uptick effect.
Yeah.
I think the second one I would say is, and this is actually not my question, it was asked of me. And when it was asked of me, it was so profound, but yet it was so simple. So I'm going to restate it. And he asked me the question, this is someone from Egon Center, Neil. He asked me the question is that, when are you at your best? And that question, if we take the time to it, will always be a very good guiding post as to what is the best environment, what have you, that would lend me to be my best. Because if we're at your best, if we're at our best, we're gonna give it the best.
Yeah.
And only the best result is gonna happen. And I think that is when you earn and when you be recognized and what have you. And the last thing I would say is, don't be shy to ask. Especially women, we don't ask enough. This is making your voice heard, and my advice would be, it doesn't hurt to ask, and be thoughtful about the ask. Mm-hmm. And I do not advise to wait for the occasion or the promotion or the opportunity to come.
Yeah.
Ask for it.
I love that. And as a manager, I will say I've had people ask before, and I haven't always been able to grant their request, but I always start the conversation with, thank you for like for speaking out like this out loud. Thank you for asking for what you want. Thank you for sharing what's on your mind. Thank you for, helping me understand what your career goals are, helping me understand, where you want to go or where you think your compensation should be or whatever it happens to be. I appreciate it. It takes a lot of guts for someone to ask. And so like whether we can say yes or not, I think any leader is going to respect somebody for bringing it to the table, right? And so if people are scared to ask, also know that your manager really respects that.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, you just reminded me of something I have to say as we wrap up here. I remember one of my leaders, Marjorie, asked me, she was the one who asked me and said, what is the next role that you want to have? And I remember looking at her at the time as a youngster, saying, I don't know that I should answer that question respectfully. I don't know how to respectfully ask that question, right? Because hey, what you have maybe what I'm.
Yeah.
And she further explained, because she probably saw the hesitation in my face when she asked the question, and she further explained why she wanted to ask. She said that if you don't tell us, we will assume what may be your next choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if we assume what may be next choice, to go back to the best, it may not be your best.
Yeah.
And therefore we have to express, we have to ask, and we have to have a voice.
Yeah. I always set up, when I join a company, I set up twice a year career conversations with my team. I do one on their work anniversary. So it's just sort of at some random time. And then 6 months later, and I do it for all of my directs. And because the only time, you give regular feedback all the time, but then you like the times when you really talk careers, sometimes during performance reviews, when everybody's uncomfortable and they're kind of just waiting for it to be over. And then when you do maybe a merit increase, and then again, you're just kind of waiting for the number and trying to get out of the conversation. And so with this, like with no like carrot or like drop waiting at the end of the call, it's just open. I always kind of say like, what experiences would you like to have next? What do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what are the opportunities that you'd like to get more involved in? And just having an open dialogue about career aspiration. It's done so much, like 9 times out of 10 within like a week, something pops up and I'm like, oh, Chris just told me that that's something he's interested in. Can I add him to this project? Because I think he could learn a ton, right? And all of a sudden, like it changes their experience and it's just a great opportunity. So I think as leaders, we can also facilitate those conversations proactively with our teams. I mean, our team should ask as well and share, but yeah, I think if you don't say it out loud, we're going to assume. And you know what we're going to assume on? We're going to assume based on what they're doing in their job here, not on what they've done their whole life before they ever came to my company, but like, what were they doing? Like, because we know them as the manager of digital marketing, not the whole life they had before they started. And so I think
their aspiration, right? If I know where the aspiration is, we can help them get to where.
Yeah. I love that.
It's fun. Yeah. Well,
awesome. Okay. One more question, actually 2 more, but one more is any fun fact about you that you'd want to share with folks on the line?
Well, that's a good one. I think I'm going to call this one. I actually have fun, the word fun, F-U-N, in my name. It is actually my Chinese name.
Oh, share it. What is it?
The sound fun in Chinese and Cantonese in particular is fragrance. Is the fragrance. And so that I always use as a little bit of a joke to say, hey, you know what? We always have to have fun because I have to have fun because it's even in my name. So there you go.
Oh, that is fun. I need to look at maybe I'll dig into the origins of my name and see if there's some meaning behind it. I like that. And fun's a great one to have, especially given what you've talked about, needing to have mission and fun. And then my last one is just if folks want to learn more about you or follow you or hear what you're thinking, what's the best place to find you?
Yeah, well, probably the best place is on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there, and I have a confession to make. A few years ago, I thought that I could separate 2 distinctive LinkedIn profiles.
Okay.
I have no idea why I said that, but somehow I wanted to and that was such a flawed assumption. So if you're looking for me, look for the one that says Zarina Stanford, because the other one, while it's actually me, but I don't look at it. So
why did you do one for like real connections and one for like extended?
It was at the moment I was coming back from the US, so I have a lot of connections in Asia, and I was trying to figure it out. I was just on assignment there. And then I was coming back. I said, well, how do I distinguish? I'm going to try to think about my communities. And I was silly enough to think that, you know what, okay, maybe I have this profile and then I'll have this other one. But the world is only one world.
It's just one word.
There's
It's
only
all much
one
smaller than we think.
second degree connection. And I made the flaw mistake. And I have no idea yet how I should just shut the other one down. So there you have it. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, Zarina L. Stanford, for folks of you going to LinkedIn, thank you so much for joining today. I loved having you on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to continue connecting after this.
Likewise, but Kelly, thank you so much. I'm having a ball in this one. We should meet up together.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast.